Haumi takuepi. Iuha tueni kashnashnia chanteoshtea na pechiusa pelo. Le Jan Ullrich emachiapi hona lakol ia ampa oka bleze emachiapi. Unchi hihasnawi ena lekshit hokea inajincha henaos lechel chajemak upi. Hona leampetuki lekshi khmoya manik chi takoa iwonglakapi ki he le. Lakota wichoye wowapi trecha wan tokel garapi na tokel awowashi e chunk umpi na tokel trogatakia yuha mani pikte ki hena echa iwo unichiaka piktelo. My name is Jan Ullrich and I have been the editor of the New Lakota Dictionary for the past 30 years. Today, together with Lakshi Khmuyamani, Richard Two Dogs, we're going to talk about the dictionary, about how it was created, how we work on it together, and also about the future of the dictionary. When the New Lakota Dictionary was first published in 2008, it contained 20,000 word entries, and around 6,000 of these were previously undocumented words. In 2022, the third edition of the dictionary will be published, and it will contain more than 41,000 entries. More than 23,000 of these entries are on words that have not been documented before and therefore can't be found in any other Lakota dictionary. This accomplishment was made possible only thanks to the native speakers who decided to share their knowledge for this project. It is these elders that are the creators of this linguistic treasure. One of these elders who worked on the dictionary is Lakshi Khmuyamani, Richard Two Dogs. He will now talk about his work on the dictionary and his thoughts about the project.
Haumitakepi. This dictionary is an invaluable record of our language and culture, and I was very happy to contribute stories and words for the third edition. I grew up speaking Lakota. I find it very interesting to browse through this book and come across many words that I used to hear from my parents and grandparents. Such old words are important for our ability to continue to express our thoughts and deep meanings, and do so through the cultural code embedded in our language. Equally important are new words so that our young people can use Lakota to talk about the contemporary world they live in. I have used other Lakota dictionaries in the past, but it is this dictionary that I find to be most comprehensive, user-friendly, and reliable. The layout, font colors, and the structure of the entries make looking up words very intuitive and easy. There is also an app that has advanced search functions and includes recordings of the words done by native speakers. I myself prefer the book version, but I also use the benefits of the app. The dictionary offers thousands of example sentences that illustrate how we native speakers use words in the Lakota language thought process. As a Lakota language teacher, I know that learning verb conjugation can be challenging for learners, and this is another reason to use this dictionary because it reliably shows the conjugation of every verb. Also, I have been teaching Lakota with the orthography used in this dictionary, and so I know from firsthand experience that it is very practical and effective in representing how we pronounce words. It helps the students to learn good pronunciation, which is key for expressing and understanding differences in meaning. This dictionary also provides the variations used by our Dakota relatives, and I think it is very interesting to see both the similarities and differences among our dialects. I am happy to see how many of us native speakers participated in documenting words and sentences in this dictionary because this resource will continue to help future generations of Lakota people to keep our language alive. I applaud everyone involved with the dictionary project, the elders who offered their time and shared stories and words, our young people who contributed comments on typos in the previous editions or recordings of their relatives, the IT specialists who helped develop the app version, grant writers who found funding to support the work, and the editor who provided critically needed linguistic oversight. The dictionary resulting from this team effort is truly wonderful. It is a detailed record of our language that will continue to be a reliable source for generations to come. I would like to encourage all of our young people to actively engage in learning our beautiful language and to always be supportive of anyone who wants to learn. If you put your heart and your minds to it, you can learn our language, and by doing so, you will make both your ancestors and your descendants very happy. Richard Tudors.
Wopilat Hanka Hechailo. Next, I would like to share some of the history of the New Lakota Dictionary development. I would like to start by telling you a story, because there is usually a story behind the production of most books, and the New Lakota Dictionary is no different. The story of this dictionary is, more than anything else, a story of Lakota elders who decided to share their knowledge for a project they believed in. Some of the people I will mention in the following section are unfortunately no longer with us. Therefore, I will follow the traditional protocol and offer food and tobacco to the spirits. So here is the story. The idea of a new dictionary for the Lakota language was initiated by a group of elders who wanted a dictionary that would be comprehensive, reliable, linguistically sound, and culturally relevant. The first of these elders was Rudy Firethunder. I met Rudy in 1992 during my first visit to Lakota country. I had been learning Lakota for 7 years prior to that, merely out of my personal interest in the language and culture. After we met, Rudy really enjoyed having Lakota conversations with me, so we spent hours at a time talking. I always had a little notebook with me and took notes on the words and phrases I heard from him. And later each day, I checked these notes against the written sources I had used previously in my self-study. This is when I started noticing that many things didn't match, and I showed some of these issues to Rudy. He was very intrigued by this and suggested that we spend some time looking through the older dictionaries and discuss the words recorded there. At one point, Rudy introduced me to his Tahashi, John around him, and the three of us would sit for hours at the Piawichoni dancing grounds and go from entry to entry. This is when Rudy and John suggested that a new dictionary should be made and that I should help with it. I protested, saying that I didn't have any background in descriptive linguistics or in lexicography, so I wasn't in a position to help. My interest in learning the language was personal, and it had never been my intention to work on a Lakota dictionary. But Rudy and John insisted that I should continue to do this type of research that we were working on together, and so I started converting my notes into a lexical database, and for the next several years I continued to extend the database by words found in older texts and recordings. All these additions were eventually cross-checked by other native speakers. I bought books about lexicography, and I continually educated myself on the field. I also started pursuing a degree in formal linguistics in addition to my previous background in second language acquisition. During the early 90s, there were other native speakers besides Rudy and John around him that shared their knowledge for this project, so I would now like to talk about some of these. Etta Little Thunder was originally from Rosebud, but she lived in Rapid City when I met her in 1992. Etta was a fluent speaker, but she was also very interested in studying the language from a conceptual point of view. She had a library full of books on the language, including Deloria's text collection. We read almost the entire book together, discussing the meanings of words and sentences. She enjoyed this very much and invited me to stay in her house so that we could spend more time working on the language together. I took meticulous notes on all of her comments, and her contribution was invaluable. And of course, her friendship was greatly cherished. She also introduced me to many of her relatives in Rosebud, including Bill and Phoebe Little Thunder. They too were helpful in sharing their knowledge, so I was able to document many words while having conversations with them. I also spent a good deal of time in the Greengrass community in Cheyenne River, recording many words from the local elders and families. This is also where I met Dave Chief, who contributed words to the dictionary as well. Towards the end of the 1990s, there were about 10,000 entries in the database. At that point, I printed a draft of the dictionary and took it to OLC and SGU to ask whether they would be interested in taking over the project or collaborating on it. Although nothing official evolved from this, a number of OLC instructors offered to help with the project, namely Wilmer Mestith and Calvin Jumpingbull. Calvin was very knowledgeable about the language, and he shared information on a number of very important words. His insights also made it possible to apply morphological patterns on other words. Wilmer Mestith spent extended periods of time working as a consultant for the project. We used to hang around the large shaded area at his house or sit in his kitchen, often while he was cooking his favorite vegetable soups. In 2001, the Oglala Lakota Tribal Council adopted a resolution that supported the founding of the Lakota Language Consortium. When a group of elders finally founded the organization in 2003, I was invited by them to help with creating a curriculum and various pedagogical products, so I interrupted my postgraduate program in order to be involved with this. The LLC elders endorsed the dictionary project, and we set out to pursue it more seriously, even with the limited funding we had. An old RV parked next to Wilmer Mestith's house was the first LLC office, and a lot of dictionary editing took place right here, both during hot summers without running air conditioning and in some very cold winter weather. Before the publication of the first edition in 2008, almost 300 speakers shared their knowledge for the dictionary. The research has been continued to this day, when the lexical database has 60,000 entries and over 41,000 of them will be in the third edition. Let me now continue talking about the real authors of the project. I have always emphasized that the native speakers are the authors of the dictionary. It's been a privilege that I was asked by elders to be the editor and to be able to work with so many native speakers. But I am just an editor that organized the lexical data and provided linguistic oversight. One of the many great things about this project is that it connected so many wonderful people. They each may have different personalities, worldviews, and lifestyles, but they all share one thing in common: their love for the language and their desire that the language is documented and taken into the future by the younger generations. Let me talk about a few more of the elders who made major contribution to the dictionary. Ben Blackbear Jr. has been one of the LLC board members since the beginning, and for the past 17 years he has been involved as the main consultant for the dictionary. His input has been invaluable, and he is the epitome of Lakota scholar. He combines the intuitive knowledge of a native speaker and a high level of systematic metalinguistic knowledge. This puts him in a unique position to work on this type of project. Ben's support for the project and his contribution to the dictionary content have been immeasurable. Needless to say that Ben provided his voice for the recordings of words offered in the app version of the dictionary. The amount of time, effort, and passion that Ben gave on behalf of the various Lakota language projects has no comparison. Johnson Hollyrock was a renowned tribal leader who served as a Lakota Language Consortium board member from the very beginning until his passing in 2012. His father was born in a teepee while the people were still camping in the Powder River area in Montana and lived through the Battle of Little Bighorn. So Johnson learned Lakota from people who remembered the buffalo hunting days. This is why he used a lot of old words, and many of them were documented in the NLD. My only regret is that we didn't have more time to document more of the language from elders like Johnson. Words can hardly describe the incredible contribution made to the dictionary by Dolores Taken Live. I met Dolores in 2005 when I started documenting the Standing Rock dialect. I knocked on the door of her house one day and started talking to her in Lakota explaining about the project. She was immediately intrigued and invited me in. After recording a story and working with me on a number of entries, she invited me to come again, saying she was very interested in contributing more to the dictionary. We eventually ended up working on the dictionary for days on end, and she invited me to stay in her house so that I didn't have to sleep in the car and we could maximize our time working on the project. This started 16 years of a very close friendship. During this time, Dolores worked on the dictionary not only when I visited her in Standing Rock, but also via phone calls on a regular basis. And when it happened so that I didn't call her for a while because I was too busy, she had one of her relatives IM me and ask me to call her. Dolores simply loved working on the dictionary and could never get tired of doing so. She checked and contributed to a vast number of word entries, and her insights into word meanings were invaluable. She epitomized the meaning of the Lakota value wowa. Dolores was also a vocal advocate of the orthographic standardization, and our discussions eventually evolved into the idea of the Lakota Summer Institute. Dolores was one of the most eloquent Lakota elders of the 21st century. It is very sad that we lost Dolores to COVID-19 in August 2020. Robert Tukrow worked as a consultant on several thousand entries. He is the epitome of the Lakota virtue of wowa. The patience he had for all the linguistic questions and for providing examples was beyond measure. He was very determined to offer as much of his time as possible. On top of this, his contribution to the Kili Radio Lakota Hour is priceless. Darlene Lasthorse from Kyle is from a traditional family in which the language was used as the only language for most of her childhood and youth. This is why her personal lexicon is wide-ranging as well as deep with meanings. She's always been very kind in sharing her time and knowledge, both when I visited her and over the phone. Iris Eagle Chasing from Cherry Creek provided her voice for the female version of the recordings in the dictionary app. During this work, she offered valuable comments on the words and entries. She also offered a large number of idiomatic expressions and old words. As a Lakota Language Consortium board member of many years, she also helped shaping the mission and the direction of the organization and the dictionary project. Dave Bald Eagle from Cherry Creek was raised by his grandfather, Chief White Bull, who was Sitting Bull's nephew. His language reflected those deep connections with that generation. While deeply rooted in the traditional life and culture, Dave also had a wide scope of experiences with and knowledge of the modern world. Again, the only great regret is that there wasn't more funding that would provide for more time with elders like him. Kenny Little Thunder was a great supporter of the project, and his wife Bernadine continues to be involved with it as a consultant. They came regularly to the Lakota Summer Institutes, which provided many opportunities for them to comment on entries, give feedback, and record new words. Ray and Dolores Texwarbonnet were humble Ikche Oyate from Kyle. Their Lakota was eloquent, showing they used it extensively throughout their lives. They were very happy to share their linguistic knowledge. I met Mel Lonehill in 1992 and we kept in touch until his passing in February 2018. He came from a family that kept alive many words that had been forgotten elsewhere. My favorite story is about the word giba, to regret something or to suffer the consequences of one's own actions. Ella Deloria documented this word in the 1920s, but between 1992 and 2007, I was unable to find a native speaker who would confirm this word. In 2007, I recorded yet another story from Mel, and in it he said, Yakibakte. After the narrative, I asked Mel what the word meant, and what he provided was exactly what Deloria wrote in the 1920s. The next day, I checked the word with his brother Everett, who lived by the Porcupine Butte, and he confirmed it. Mel was always happy to visit in Lakota and share his knowledge of words, and so is his sister Vaina, who has also been consulted on many entries. I met Mary Ann Redcloud in 1992 and she provided her insights on hundreds of entries. She was really great to work with. Robert Left-Hand Bull from Spring Creek helped immensely with the documentation of the Rosebud dialect. Fern Ann Hollowhorn from Manderson provided many insights on a large number of entries. I would bring her food, coffee, and coffee filters, and we would sit in this little hut of hers and go from entry to entry. Florida Bullbear Jealous from Kyle offered her vast knowledge of words, idiomatic expressions, and various aspects of traditional life. She's always been very welcoming whenever I visited her and eager to work on the dictionary. Paulette High Elk from Iron Lightning Community consistently attended the Lakota Summer Institutes. She was a talented Lakota writer and helped as a consultant for the dictionary for over a decade. Regina Grant from Cannonball was one of the consultants for the Yanktonay Dakota dialect, along with wonderful people like Zona Lones Arrow, Felix Kidder, and Richard Foolbear. I met Rick Two Dogs in 1992, but we really got to know each other more closely in 2018 during the Lakota Summer Academy at the OLC. Sometime after that, he started to help with the dictionary and we've been holding regular weekly sessions. His contribution is beyond measure. He knows many idiomatic expressions with deep cultural meanings and has profound insights into word usage, morphology, and semantics. Working with Rick has been a great privilege. He is one of those wonderful elders who have shown a great passion for working on the dictionary.
We've been going through, I guess, different words, the meaning. If it's we did a lot of work with conjugating verbs and some concepts of the words. It's been interesting and fun. I like doing it. So I want to share everything I can because I know it's being documented. Because as we know, nobody lives forever.
As I mentioned earlier, there are hundreds of other speakers, and it is not possible to mention all of them, but they are listed in the acknowledgement section of the dictionary. Since its publication in 2008, the dictionary has been used by a growing number of Lakota language teachers and learners, as the following testimonials show.
Hello, everybody. My name is Laura Ketches. I am the Lakota Studies Director at Oglala Lakota County School District. Here we use the Lakota Language Consortium orthography. We use the dictionary. We use all the materials to help us learn Lakota. I have been personally using, this is the first orthography I've used to learn Lakota at a Lakota Language Summer Institute. And I've used it to learn Lakota and teach Lakota. So we are, it is mandated to teach district-wide here. And we are honoring Levi Left-Hand, who was my mentor and who is not here anymore, but he also saw, firsthand and believed in the orthography and saw how it benefited the teachers as well as the students and just everyone learning Lakota. So I just want to say thank you to all the supporters and everyone who takes the time to learn Lakota and is a part of language revitalization. The dictionary is just so amazing because you can look up any word that you need to on your cell phone. Using and having the book is just offers additional learning. Pronunciation of each of the words is so important, especially in the school system. Any learners don't want to mess up the words, so it's like they can press on the man version or the female version, and that's just phenomenal. Yeah, I'm just super grateful for the elders for taking the time to do the recordings, having that trust to, that our, people were going to use this for generations to come. And it just has been such a reliable resource, not only in my own learning, but, in the entire district, and anyone who's taking language learning seriously. It's just one of the best tools that we can have.
Yeah, the dictionary is quite helpful. In fact, I'm helping Alan Wilson teach Lakota language, and we're slowly working our way towards the point of getting people to use the dictionary. So that's one of the things that we're doing. So yeah, the dictionary is becoming more and more valuable, and especially for the fact that it's on, you can get it on iPhone or one of your devices. I think that's especially helpful because people can look up things right, basically on the spot and in real time. So the dictionary is quite a valuable instrument, and of course, the fact that it's consistent, it has words, consistent spelling. It has helpful hints about conjugating verbs, and besides, of course, writing the meanings of words and so forth. So yeah, all those are extremely valuable additions to the dictionary, and then we keep adding new words to it. So I think those are all extremely valuable additions to the dictionary. So I hope that more people will make use of that, and eventually continue the process of learning the language through the dictionary. I actually learned in the process of working with Jan on the dictionary because sometimes he comes up with a word and that I'm not even aware of. So we talk about it, and then we find it someplace, and realize what it means, and it's a new word, that's still being used. So so I contributed that way in developing the dictionary. Is coming up with all these new words and learning in the process, but realizing that the words are still being used, by Lakota speakers. So that's what makes it good dictionary, and I worked with Jan on it for many, many years. So it was still, I guess, it's a developing thing. So.
They came up with this dictionary. I was really excited about that because we can look up the words and translate, and they themselves could look it up and translate because it was written both in Lakota and in English. So they, of course, as some of them were not fluent, so they would look up look up the English word and then say it in Lakota. And that's where I was working with some young people, and I would help them with the pronunciation of the word, and of course they could read the meaning in English. And then later on they came up with the phone app, and boy, that really took off. So then we were able to text with these young students. They were like high school students. So they were able to communicate with myself and my husband at the time. So then I always remembered how far it came from that year until today. And I have a lot of young people that still write to me in Lakota. When they text me or when they Facebook me, I would speak to them in Lakota, and they're able to write back, or speak to me in Lakota, or write to me in Lakota, and I would write back in Lakota. I feel really good inside that they're able to use this, whether it's the phone app or even looking at the dictionaries that they have available. And I myself have family members that use those resources. They're really happy that they can get on their phone and look up a word and then teach themselves how to say it, because even those are recorded. So that's what I think is so awesome about these dictionaries that they came up with, and with the phone apps that go along with it. But to me, I think it's important that it's designed to where, like our students, like our Lakota kids today, they're able to read the English language, and they have the skills to read and know where to put the diacritic marks and all of that. So when this came about, they were able to read it and actually know what was being taught to them, even by pictures, because I remember how colorful the workbooks were. So to me, I think that what was most important is that the children are the ones that are going to learn from the way these books and dictionaries are made. It doesn't have anything to do with us as fluent speakers or adults, that we should be really be supportive of this orthography, because our kids can read it.
My name is Kevin Locke, and I live here in Wakapala, South Dakota, one of the districts of Standing Rock. And I've been involved with the Lakota language for many years as a second language learner. And I met Jan many years ago in Bloomington, Indiana, maybe close to 30 years ago. And one thing I remember from many, many years ago is hearing people praying about the continuity and the survival of the language. And I really feel that the dictionary and the materials that are being developed, have been developed, and are being developed by LLC are really a fulfillment of those prayers. And of course, we have to detach ourselves to the actual way those prayers are fulfilled. That really language, any kind of language, is a product of the human spirit that transcends gender and race and ethnicity and geography. So it's a wonderful fulfillment of that. And of course, the dictionary is and the orthography are wonderful tools for our younger generation who have these potentialities and gifts that can be released in fulfillment of our ancestors' prayers. And I've seen the effectiveness of the orthography and the materials demonstrated with young people who can now just pick up any of the materials and easily read them with the proper pronunciation that's portrayed in the orthography, and of course the stress, the required stress for the words. So I really have seen in the last several years the effectiveness of the initiative of the Lakota Language Consortium.
I will now talk briefly about what is new in the third edition of the New Lakota Dictionary. Of course, the main difference lies in the number of entries. So if you compare the number of words that were present in the first edition published in 2008 with the number of entries that will be published in the third edition next year, you will see that there is a major increase. The total number of entries in the first edition was 20,000. The total number of entries in the third edition will be 41,000. Now, the words unique to the NLD are words that don't occur, are not published in any other Lakota language dictionary. And there were 6,000 of these in the first edition, and there will be over 23 and possibly even 24,000 unique words. And that means these are words that would not have been otherwise documented if it weren't for the collaborative efforts among the Lakota Language Consortium and the many elders and people who contributed in one way or another. These words would not have been available. So just very briefly, here are some examples of unique words unique to the NLD. Of course, there are 23,000+ of them, so there is a lot, but just very briefly, things like Aoa Hechecha, to be slightly better, recorded from Dolores taken live. To be purposely deaf, like somebody doesn't want to hear the arguments or requests. That's recorded, documented from Johnson Holyrock. Wihutiaglea, on the verge of something, also recorded from Johnson Holyrock. Watakukuya, to treat people as relatives, documented from Rick Two Dogs, and many other things. For example, Kamnaya Eaya, to win somebody over, documented from Shirley Left Hand. Awi ich iglukcha, to think about things for oneself, to consider one's own things, documented from Dolores taken live. Ab es eha, everything went quiet all of a sudden, or there is a quiet surrounding us, from Marian Red Cloud. Jahalia from Robert Two Crow, and I could continue and continue because there are a lot of words. Another major enhancement of the third edition is the comprehensiveness of the coverage of derived words. What are derived words? So, for example, the verb ska, to be white, can be modified into with a suffix ya to become skaya, being white, in a white state, in a white condition. And skaya can be further derived into other forms. Similarly, the causative skaya, to make something white, to paint something white, can have a number of other derivatives. We have done a lot of research in the past 10 years to identify all possible types of derived words, and we have put a lot of effort into covering all derivatives in a very consistent, systematic way. So now in the third edition, the derived words are covered very comprehensively. Let me show you an example in the desktop app of the dictionary. Of course, these things can be found in the book as well, but it's just easier to show here on the screen. So if I search for ska, I find the derived words listed at the end of each entry. And of course, you can click on any one of these entries and find any one of these derived words and find the entry itself. So here we have skaya, the causative, and skaya, the derived modifier. And of course, if you look up the word white on the English side, then under ska, you will also find the same derivatives, and under skaya, the derivatives of skaya. So basically, the derivatives are given in 3 places. They are in the dictionary. They are given at the end of the entry. They are given under each as an entry itself, and under that entry, there are new derivatives of the derived word, and they are also given under the English entry as well. So this is an important thing. And some words have a lot of derivatives. Here we can see, for example, a list of derivatives for the verb wayanka, to see. And you can see that here is even a longer list of the derivatives. Many language activists have made the dictionary project their own in various ways. For example, many have been in touch with the editor and have been sending comments about typos they had found, about their user experiences, as well as requests for future editions. A growing number of language activists also started interviewing their elders and recording stories from them, and subsequently sharing the content so that words documented in these recordings can be added into the dictionary. People like Travis Condon from Standing Rock, Alex Firethunder from Pine Ridge, Alan Wilson from Rosebud, the staff of the Immersion School in Pine Ridge, and many other people have contributed greatly to the dictionary in these various ways. It is our great hope that more language activists make efforts to document the language by recording dialogues or stories from their elders. We also hope that in near future there will be young Lakota people who become interested in linguistics and pursue a degree in the field. That way, one of the future Lakota linguists could eventually take over the editorship of the dictionary.
What is the future of the dictionary project? There are still many words in our language that have not been documented. Many of them have deep meanings that express worldviews and concepts known by traditional native speakers. If these words and idioms are not documented, they will be forever lost. And with them, we will lose important concepts embedded in the Lakota language. Recently, there have been a lot of arguments over various aspects of Lakota language revitalization. Many people argue about orthographies and methods and invest a lot of time and energy into these arguments. This is not constructive and it does result in finding solutions. And while people spend time arguing and trying to tear each other down, native speakers and elders are leaving us at an accelerated speed due to COVID-19. If only we can spend the same amount of time and energy on finding solutions and on further documenting the language from these elders who are still with us, that would be so much more constructive and result in better outcomes. One way to do this is to put away our differences, to agree to disagree on details, but to show each other respect and support because we all share the same vision, taking the beautiful Lakota language into the future. Furthermore, the future of the dictionary and the work on the language depends on our actions. In order for the dictionary to continue to grow, it is important to find young Lakota people who would take it upon themselves to study linguistics and achieve skills and knowledge that would enable them to work as editors of the dictionary and researchers for the language. Nakolia piki le un tokata ki eun tuan pina glukini un kua pikte.